The documents do indeed show that King John granted 40 acres of land along the river. And it is here that later the Trinitarian Priory was built in memory of St. Robert, a priory famous for its work of paying the ransoms of prisoners captured by the Saracens in the Crusades. Knaresborough's first known charter was signed in 1257 by King John's youngest son, Richard, Earl of Cornwall and Lord of Knaresborough. So let's now move on half a century to another Lord of Knaresborough, the notorious Piers Gaveston, the boastful Gascon who had been exiled by Edward I because of his corrupting influence on his son. But on Edward's death in 1307, the new king, Edward III, called back his friend and raised him to high office, and for the sake of appearances, gave him his niece, Lady Margaret, as wife.
Have a care how you speak of me, monsieur. Piers de Gaveston. I enjoy the personal protection and favour of His Majesty King Edward II. And I would also have you know that it is through his generosity that I am able to bestow great benefit on this town of Knaresborough. First, I am rebuilding the castle. Oh, you see about you now only the rough beginnings. And I have employed a new master mason, you of Tishmarsh, the man who helped to build the great castle of Carnarvon. You, tell them something of our plans.
Well, my lord, we have now levelled out the old Norman castle built by King John, and on the same site are building an even greater fortress. We shall use the same outline as the old castle, especially the vast dry moat he caused to be dug out yonder. But ours will have sturdier walls, with 12 watchtowers. And here, where we are standing, shall be the great keep, beneath which is the dungeon. A massive building with 12 radiating arches from a central column, and walls 15 feet thick. No one will ever escape from that dungeon, sire. That I'll guarantee.
Tell me, how many workmen do you employ, Master Titchmarsh?
Why, my lady, more than 100, as well as 12 skilled quarrymen who cut and shape the stone down in the quarry by March Bridge.
And what will be the total cost of building the keep?
Oh, the estimate, my lady, is around £2,175. And now, my lord, with your permission, I must depart and see about my workmen.
So, you see how the king favours this town by the building of such a great castle, henceforth to be a suitable residence for the kings and queens of England. And, secondly, the king has acceded to my request that this town be granted a royal charter. And that will grant Knaresborough the status of a free borough. People of Knaresborough, here is your charter. Signed and sealed at York on the 16th day of August in the year of our Lord 1310. The town of Knaresborough shall be a free borough. And the men of the town shall be free burgesses, not in bondage to any lord. So you see, people of Knaresborough, you now enjoy the privileges of a free borough of far greater status than those little hamlets out there in the forest, those of Fewston and Bilton and Parnell and that one out that way.
Harrogate, my lord.
Oh, yes. Harrogate. So now, people of those insignificant little hamlets like Harrogate will look in envy on the new free borough of Knaresborough. Vive le roi! Long live King Edward II!
lovely, boastful Gascon for you, did a lot of good for the town, charter and the rebuilding of this castle completely. But he may have been instrumental in raising the status of the town, but only 2 years later, while Edward II was actually staying in Knaresborough Castle, Gaveston was captured by the rebellious barons in Scarborough Castle and beheaded, his severed head being sent back here to the king. We thought it would be a bit too gruesome to reenact that bit. Then, in October 1317, one of the rebel knights besieged and captured Knaresborough Castle, holding it until the 29th of January 1318, when it was recaptured by the king's forces. But only a few months later, Knaresborough was struck by an even greater disaster, a raid by a fearsome band of marauding Scots. Sir, a word, if you please.
What do you say, you wee miserable Sassenach?
Why you Scots here in such numbers so far from home? Why are you attacking the peaceful town of Knaresborough?
Have you no heard of the Battle of Bannockburn, laddie? Midsummer's Day, 1314, when Robert the Bruce, encouraged by the wee struggling spider in the cave, rose up to defeat the English, slaughtering the great armies of your Edward II.
Yes, well, we've heard of Bannockburn and the wee struggling spider, certainly.
Aye, well, let me tell you this, laddie. I fought alongside Bruce at Bannockburn. I am Sir James Douglas. Black Douglas, men call me. For I stand nae nonsense and show nae mercy as I lead triumphant Scots into England to punish those who have dared to cross the border and harass our kingdom.
But is it right to attack a small town like this without warning?
We gave Knaresborough the same warning as that place, Ripon. We camped outside Ripon for 3 days until they promised to pay us 1,000 merks. They paid up, so we spared them. When we came here to Knaresborough, nobody would pay us a penny. So we burnt the hooses down and we set fire to your kirk.
What a brutal, uncivilised lot you are.
Hey, it happened to me, you wee coon Sassenach. There's war, you ken. War between Scots and English. Men from Knaresborough fought against us at Bannockburn, including William Devoe, the newly appointed constable of this here castle, who died in action. There's blood in the heads of all who support Edward II. But soon we shall be free. I see a day when we'll have our own parliament and make our own laws. Free university places for all students, except for those faces on the border, you Sassenachs. And free haggis for our students as well. These are glorious times in which we live. Flushed with victory, we roam across northern England as conquerors, avenging the shameful death of Braveheart, Sir William Wallace, taken down to London and treacherously murdered. O flower of Scotland, when will we see your likes again? Wha fought and died for... That's the wrong one I'm doing, isn't it?
It is indeed, yes, yes. You Scots are alone to yourselves, yeah.
Wallace bled, Scots swam Bruce has often led. welcome to your gory bed or to victory. Now's the day and now's the hour, see the front o' battle hour. See approach proud Edward's power, chains and slavery. War for Scotland's king and law, freedom's sword will strongly draw. Free man stand, or free man fall, let him follow me. Let him follow me! Freedom!
Well, we do... You're not done with them yet, you know. We do depart from the script from time to time, sometimes with happy results, actually. A case was the Viking decided he'd come on with a sword, and he had one of those that the Scots were going to use, so that was a little out of sequence, and that was what they call a claymore. And some of you may have been thinking, you know, size doesn't matter anyway, but the fact is that Black Douglas there assured me that that was a replica of one of the swords used by William Wallace. They really were as big as that. So at least the Scots were generous with cold steel. Well, you'll excuse the anachronism in that lovely song, which actually the words by Robert Burns, not written until the 18th century. But this is the spirit, you see, in which the Scots burnt down 140 out of 160 of the most substantial houses of the town. Fortunately, Knaresborough soon rose from its smouldering ruins, and a few years later embarked on a more peaceful period under the gracious rule of Queen Philippa. She was a young Flemish princess who first came to Knaresborough in 1328 just to spend a week's honeymoon after her marriage with Edward III, so Edward III in York Minster. She was then just 15 years old, and it was not until 1331, when Philippa was 18, that King Edward granted her as a marriage dower, and this is why we know she came here then, the castle, the town, the honour and forest of Knaresborough. So here now comes the young Queen Philippa, 18 years of age, and again she should have approached on horseback, but I think we have a very dignified escort for her. And you'll see two knights, Knights of the Black Phoenix, and you'll see a lady with a falcon, a hawk of some kind on her wrist, because falconry was very popular in those days. And there it is, look, demonstrating for you Queen Philippa, ladies in waiting holding her train. Well, as she makes her way into the castle and makes her way up the stairway, perhaps a little more nimbly than King John, I'll ad-lib a little bit about her. She was, as you heard, a Flemish princess. She spoke the Flemish language and French, and she did a great deal for this town because her name turns up again and again in the documents of that period. She actually took an active part in the administration of the Forest of Knaresborough and the whole of this area. And there's some interesting stories about her, actually. We haven't time to go into all of them now, but she was a popular queen, and any moment she will be on the battlements to address the people. Here she comes, Queen Philippa.
People of Knaresborough, I come among you as
as your queen, but above all as one who desires to establish peace and prosperity in this troubled northern kingdom. I shall seek to restore rights, to settle disputes, and to recover this town from the ravages of the Scots. In particular, I shall restore your parish church, installing a worthy new east window in beautiful reticulated style, creating a chapel with an Easter sepulchre, and adding a top story to the church tower. Let both church and castle stand as symbols of security, temporal and spiritual, and let this community grow and flourish around them. And now bring forth my maidens and musicians to herald an age more tranquil and harmonious.
Thank you, those delightful ladies from the Knaresborough and Harrogate Dance Centre, which meets just there in the Castle Girls' School, actually. Philippa's lasting memorial, of course, to the town was a splendid restoration of the parish church, reconsecrated in 1343. Only a few years later, however, in July 1349, Knaresborough was visited by another disaster, the Black Death, bubonic plague, spread by flea-ridden black rats, wiping out a third of the population of England and taking a terrible toll in Knaresborough itself. Yet once again the town recovered and soon entered a new phase as part of the Duchy of Lancaster. You see, Edward III and Queen Philippa had two famous sons, the Black Prince and John of Gaunt. And on the 25th of June, 1372, King Edward granted to his fourth son, John of Gaunt, Duke of Lancaster, the Lordship of Knaresborough, which explains why this is still one of the Queen's castles, administered by the Duchy of Lancaster. So let's give a hearty welcome to one of our most prestigious overlords, at the time set to be the richest man in England, the equivalent of a modern mega-millionaire with a staggering income from his estates of £12,000 a year. Ladies and gentlemen, John of Gaunt.